Here's a quick breakdown of all the books that I've read for Palestine. I'm going to go over these one at a time. This book is written by a Palestinian historian. It's the first book that I read. I would recommend it for you as the first book to read. It's also probably the most comprehensive of any of the books on this list. It covers more of the history than any of the books are attempting to, and it does it incredibly well. So this is a great first place to start. Okay, this one is going over the history of kind of Palestinian nationalism that started at the end of the Ottoman Empire, but really it's about nationalism in general, and really the contrast between Arab nationalism and all that that entails, kind of the intersectionality of that idea, and the way that we do nationalism in the West, which is more of this flattening of all other identities, which makes it hard for us to understand Palestinian identity. Really fascinating read. This one was highly recommended by the Palestinian author of the first two. It was written by a Lebanese British historian who was a legend. It's a very dense, thick read, but is helpful in providing context to the entire region, and I'm still working through it. This is an Israeli historian going through the Israeli Zionist written record of what happened in 1948 in a very detailed fashion. He's got access to these records, and so he is trying to record this for history's sake. This is an essential read. Okay, contrast that with this one, which is Palestinian historians going to the Lebanese refugee camps in, I think, early 2000s and speaking to the last living survivors of the Nakba and doing, I think, hundreds of interviews. So this is oral history as opposed to the last one, which is going through the written record. This is someone going in and speaking to people who actually lived through it. This is an incredible piece of history and absolutely heartbreaking. This one is trying to cut through the propaganda, absolutely essential. It also is covering a very large portion of the history. Each chapter kind of goes over a different myth, but it goes over it in chronological order. So I would kind of compare this to the very, very first one, which is covering more of the history than any of the other books. So this one and 100 Years' War really are covering a huge chunk of the history of this region. This one takes place after the first Intifada. It's a comic. It's incredibly visceral. The art is so well suited for conveying the kind of humanity of and the brutality of this situation of what Gaza was like at that time. Never would have guessed that comics and this subject matter would go together, but this is really incredible. This one's going over Operation Castled, Operation Pillar Defense, and Protective Edge. Really, the military operations that set up what is happening right now. Also goes over how the international community have responded to that or failed to respond. Really lays out, here's how this started in Gaza. This is how it's been allowed to happen at an international level. It's incredibly detailed, but I think really answers some big questions about how we got to where we are right now. All right, this is a pretty short, quick read where Angela Davis just kind of breaks down her thoughts on freedom struggles all around the world, and really points out that what's going on in Palestine affects the rest of the world, and that people in the civil rights freedom movements have always understood that all of these things have to be tied together, that we're all going to get free together. We can't allow oppression to exist in any one place because it will spread. There will be an export of the tools of oppression. So it's a quick read, but incredibly helpful. Speaking of exporting oppression, if you want to know how bad it is and how much has been exported, this is the book for you. I was really stunned at how long this has been going on and how far-reaching it is. This one is a very helpful conversation between two people who have been trying to educate people on this issue for a very, very long time. I found it incredibly helpful in terms of how to think about what should be happening now. I think that's what the focus of this book is both of them looking to the future and saying what do they think is going to work, and what movements and what kind of new language is needed to change the course of history. I don't love the title that they used, but this one is put out by Oxford. It's a very short introduction, which is a series that Oxford put out that I do really like. They've done like over 400 of these on all kinds of topics, and so I think I use these sometimes when I want to get some information about a subject I don't really know anything about. And I think this one could be helpful for someone who's got a family member or loved one who may not be willing to read any of the authors that have been on this list already, this might be the way to go.